Hi everyone, we're gonna go over a more complicated photo to thumbnail. So again, thumbnailing is just about planning, trying to figure out what value you want, where is the composition at, where is this gonna be on my final paper. I'm gonna go ahead and just edit through this drawing, or through this. I don't think I want this ledge here. It's not that, I just don't want that dark there. So so that way I'm gonna have less foreground there, and then I think I just want everything in a little bit closer, so I don't want that much space above the snowman. And then I'm gonna go ahead and go to saturation and pull down all the colors so it's all just black and white. Okay, so for my thumbnail should be like maybe 2 by 3 inches. You could go even smaller, but it's for the sake of my drawing, I'm gonna do it a little bit bigger. And I think too that sometimes if they're too small, it's really hard to decipher what is going where, and then the artist, whoever's drawing, is getting confusing themselves. So again, the first thing I'm gonna start with is just like my tick mark slash like my box measurement of how big across and how wide this photo is. So the farthest thing out is the white bow, and the farthest thing out is maybe like the heel of the ice skate. So I'm gonna take, I need a longer one, but I'm gonna take my brush and go ahead and measure. So I'm not gonna use the string. So I have 1 by 1 1/4 maybe. It's almost a perfect square. So I remember I decide how big 1 is, and I want it to be pretty cropped in. The other example I did was pretty zoomed out, so it's gonna be 1. So I'm gonna measure where 1 by 1 1/4 would be. So it'd be about there. So I'm just trying to think about like where my drawing is going to exist on the paper. This one I'm going to leave pretty centered because I feel like the objects aren't centered, and they kind of have like this dynamic quality to them that I don't have to lean them more to the left or the right on the paper. And I want them to take up a lot of space. Second thing I'm going to do is the envelope shape. And that's just from, you know, think about where's the snowman at, like the widest part down. He's pretty over to the right here. So his measurement, or his envelope shape, is gonna start pretty far over from like my tick mark and my box. It's not gonna be here. It has to be going down and across to the bow. And I could take my pencil and make sure that my measurements are correct. And then from the bow to the lace here, and then what's the farthest down is actually this part of the lace. This one's a lot higher up. So it's just gonna be a little bit of a drop, and that's gonna be the total drop down here, because that's where the lace is touching. That's almost in the middle, like this part right here. So that might look a little awkward in the final, if it's gonna be that centered at the bottom there. Laces though, that's something you can move over to the left or to the right, because it's not like moving an eye where it's gonna like really look off. Like laces can kind of be anywhere on the page and they'll look okay. So there's my envelope shape. And then you want, again, to think about how the envelope shape has to touch all the sides of your tick marks or your box measurement that you took. My third thing is gonna be the block in. This has a pretty complicated objects, but you just really want to simplify everything. So for that dark red bow that's in the middle here, it's almost like totally just in shadow with a couple of like very light, kind of reflective shapes pulled out. That's pretty much it though. So we just want to really simplify. So I'm going to start with like where my things are in space. So the closest thing to me is the laces. I'm going to kind of guess how tall those are going to be. And then next would be the bottom of the cup. Maybe where it's like about at the middle, it's gonna be the box shape where that snowman's sitting on. And the snowman's farther back than the box, so I can put a little tick mark down for where I think the snowman's gonna sit. I know it's kind of hard to visualize just with all these straight lines, like what's actually gonna be there, but drawing contour right away is actually gonna cost you more time, and you're not gonna want to redraw anything, whereas I don't care if I have to redraw a straight line because it doesn't really matter because I didn't spend that much time on it. I'm gonna just block in about where I think that dark bow is gonna be. Look at this negative space between the mug and the skate, and then the bow and the mug, or sorry, the bow and the skate. So like this area right here is empty. So I'm gonna use, again, we kind of do block and slash negative space. I'm gonna use that to my advantage. The mug's gonna be almost like at the center, it's like the left eye of the snowman, so it's not centered, which looks okay on my drawing. And then this might be a little off, my bow here. I think it needs to go more over. So let me put the rest of the objects in before I address where that white bow is gonna go. Sometimes the envelope shape, you're gonna get it so accurate, and sometimes it's gonna be a little off. And it's okay if it's off, you know, like obviously I don't think this is gonna work out for mine, so it's okay if that happens for yours too. The goal is though for it to work out and like to do all these measurements and stuff, and then that will be correct at the end. The skate down here. I think all these laces here will fit fine. Oh wait, they have to get taller. So just keeping it super blocky and little, right? Overall, my space is pretty little. Again, the thumbnail box, that's representing the final canvas or the paper. Is this box, this first box that we draw. Yeah, it's just gonna stick out a little bit. Just a whittle, that's okay. So that would be kind of the beginning of the block-in, and I'm gonna go through and kind of break down the snowman a little bit more. Kind of measuring like where's the top of the scarf in relationship to the top of the ice skate. And then I think that head might be too big. Well, actually this scarf's kind of thick, so I think it's okay. The skate's kind of fun to draw because there's so many light, dark happening. The laces though, those are to really simplify. And then I'm gonna talk a little bit on how to draw the laces, but not too much because those are almost too much detail for the thumbnail stage. But you don't want to try to pick the lace out and do the contour and try to follow it like all the way through and like see which way it goes. You don't want to do that. You want to treat it like it's a big shape, and you're gonna go in and draw the little negative spaces in between the shapes. And then that's the same way you would treat the bows. The bows are pretty complicated because there's so many like little sections, and eventually you'd have to draw all those. I'm gonna start putting some of the cast shadows in when I see them. As far as the bows go, I would just worry about the negative space that's directly affecting the contour. And then I would maybe put in a couple of like these darks. So like I see a little bit of a triangle, there is a dark, I see one over there, that's a dark, I see a skinny one over here that has a dark. And I'm gonna shade all that in. The other one, I'm just gonna throw it all in the shadow for right now. And then I'm gonna do a little bit of drapery. And cast shadow. So the cast shadow is directly kind of rolling over and under and over and under the drapery right there. So I'm gonna first just block it in as one straight line. Oh, it's too low. And then from here, right here, this core shadow edge, all the way to there, it's all one big dark shape. And I'm gonna pull out two light shapes. And it gets cut off by the cast shadow of the snowman. And then you wanna make sure that your shapes are different sizes. So this one's gonna be bigger than that one. I did not draw the snowman's face on purpose because it's pretty much all in shadow. And you're gonna draw it more so when you draw the final, but not right now. And then the last thing we're gonna do is a to value statement. So let's talk about this mug first. The mug on this side is in the light, and the skate's also in the light, but the mug's a lot darker. So that's something called local color. So local color means the color of the actual object. So the color of this mug, I think, is red, and red's a pretty dark color. So even though that the red's in the light, it doesn't turn pink, it stays red. So it'd still be considered a dark, even though it's on the light side, because of the local color. The local color is dark enough to push the whole thing into dark. And then we have, I like this little lip right here. So I'm gonna make sure that that stays in the light. And then this is all cast shadow on the inside. The handles are dark. Only the little triangles I blocked in are gonna be dark for the bow over here. The cast shadow is gonna be dark. I'm gonna lose the bottom of the cup. That's okay. I have the top of the side of the box here. That's in light, and then the front of it's all in the dark. This bow is just too much right now. So I'm just gonna say it's all a dark. Half the snowman's in the light, or in over half, I should say, is in the dark. And the other half on the right side's a light. The scarf's partly in light. The face is all in dark. Half of the hat is in the light. Half of it's in the dark. Half of the little ball on the top's in the light. And the other half's in dark. And then again, this is going to be all dark. Dark here, so I'm going to lose this edge of the snowman into the cast shadow that's falling onto the drapery. That's going to be a light. This is going to be a dark. That's going to be a light here, and then the rest of this is going to be a dark. And then this, I think, kind of goes back into the dark over here. The skate is kind of fun to draw, I think, because there's all these cast shadows and form shadows going on. But just keep it very simple in the course, in the thumbnail. All of the whole blade's in dark, along with the cast shadow is all in dark. There's some of the laces are in light with some cast shadows and stuff between them in a dark. The side of the laces is all a dark. cast shadow on the toe of the skate. And then this part, I think that's going to be the hardest one to simplify in the thumbnail. So I'm drawing pretty dark. You guys should draw lighter, but I erased a little bit so I could just focus on what I already have as a guide. And then I'm just going to try to simplify the darks. Oh, the little T thing, the little paper, I think I'm going to say is a dark. The negative space between the two laces are a dark. There's a cast shadow from the T label as a dark. Some of these over here, see all this mess? I'm just making it all one big shape right here. That's all going to be a dark. And then the lace goes up, and the little aglet right here, the plastic, that's a dark. So that would be my two value statement. I guess I would consider this as a bit darker because that's so light. So maybe I'll block them as a dark as well. But I'm not going to shade it super, super dark because I don't think it is that dark, and then I want to be able to kind of decipher. So I have one value, I'll have three values right now, right? Because I ended up doing that very last one, a lighter value, but essentially you only need two. And if you wanted to get real crazy, you could add a fourth one to separate out some of the darks and the lights, right? So like here, right, like figuring out where the skate is compared to where the bottom, I can make this all a lot darker, right? You could push that darker. You can come into the red bow and start deciphering out like the contour of the bow and the negative space over here, and getting some of those dark triangles in like I did for the light side. Same thing with the eyes of the snowman. We just want to think about, if it's in the dark, it's all part of the dark shape. It's not separated until you are pushing more darks into the darks, you're pushing more lights into the lights. But the first pass, you just want to do two values over everything. And then you don't have to do this part. This is only if you want to, or you think your thumbnail needs it, if you want to do more separation. But let me know if you guys have any questions. Just remember these 4 steps for thumbnailing. Thumbnailing is all about planning. Make sure you go in this order and make sure you keep it very simple. Thank you.